Hey everybody, and welcome to my eye tutorial. I started with this tutorial because it's probably one of the easier requests that I got. Something that I want to clarify is that this is not a tutorial for drawing like a beautiful, detailed, perfect eye. It's just the way that I draw eyes in most of my drawings, and I kind of consider this to be a quick and dirty technique. The thing is that in general, unless you're doing a close-up or a portrait, you're never going to be drawing a very detailed eye when you're drawing. Usually the eyes are like a focal point of your drawing, so you want them to be striking, and you want to give them some detail so that the viewer's gaze is drawn to the eye. But you don't want them to be so insanely detailed or large compared to the rest of the art piece that it looks off. Since eyes are only a small part of the drawing, I don't bother adding a lot of detail because that detail would be probably lost anyway when the drawing is zoomed out to the correct size. So basically, this is my strategy for drawing eyes pretty quickly in a way that's appealing even though it doesn't have a ton of detail. This looks better with small scale, not really large scale eyes, due to the lack of tons and tons of detail. I'm gonna break down the way that I work on eyes into some slides so that it's easier to pause the video and see exactly what I'm talking about at any given time. So first I start with a lemon-like shape that's tapered on one side and sort of cut off on the other side. Obviously, the shape of the eye changes depending on what kind of character you want to portray. I'm assuming that you're drawing your character in a side-looking view here, and you can get a good idea of eye shapes by studying large cats or wolf profile side image and look at their eyes. In general, the more innocent and childlike a character is, the bigger and rounder I'll make their eyes. Next, draw two concentric circles in the eye for the iris and pupil. This is kind of self-explanatory. Remember that the iris will be located in the direction that the dragon or character is looking. So if they're looking up, the iris and pupil should be centered more towards the top of the eye. Or if they're looking down into the side, then you want to draw the iris and pupil more centered down into the side of the eye, so not in the center like I drew it here. We can also draw the expression lines in here, like lines to signify the eyelid and stuff. Next, draw the scales around the eye. I assume you're watching this tutorial because you like dragons, since I'm mainly a dragon channel, but hey, if you're drawing humans or wolfies or whatever, then just briefly sketch out however you want the eyebrow or the fur to be laid out. It'll be different based on the character's expression. I just kind of went for a neutral, wide-eyed expression here. Finally, we can start to work with color. So I shade in the white part, just with a light gray, or light color that's slightly diluted with whatever color the eye is. Usually at the top is where I'll shade because the eyebrow or the eye ridge of scales will be throwing a shadow over the eye. Then we should pick 4 colors that we will use to color in the eye. You want 1 medium color, usually the color that's listed on a character's reference sheet, 1 light color, 1 to 2 shading colors, and 1 super bright, almost neon highlight. Next, just color in the main eye with the medium color that you picked and color the pupil in with one of the shading colors that you picked. Then we shade the top part of the eye with the dark shading color that we picked, something close to the shade of the pupil. Usually I shade about half the eye, so you want to shade approximately the top semicircle of the eye. Now we're almost finished, and this is one of the trickiest parts. We're on to the highlights. And this is what will make the eye really pop and stand out in your drawing. To do this, we take a brush with slightly soft edges that's not at full opacity, and we can lightly highlight around the lower semicircle of the iris. Sometimes I like to make it a little bit blobby. Then we go in with the bright neon color and draw little lines around the iris to make it pop with detail. It's nothing too fancy, but it's enough so that the eye stands out when you look at it from far away, and it also helps draw focus to the pupil and where the eye is looking. Occasionally, I also draw a perpendicular, very light curved line to connect the shinies too, mostly just because it looks cool. I don't really know of any physiological reason, but I like how it looks. The main trick here is not to draw too many of the little iris lines, because if it looks too uniform, it's going to look stagnant and unnatural. In general, what you want to do is just color most of the iris lines from the bottom and only a couple near the top. Since remember, the top semicircle of the eye is where the shading is, so we won't see much detail there because it's in shadow and we're already focusing on the light part. Lastly, you can add the finishing touches. I almost always add a glint of reflected light to the eye here. Just a little bit of white to give the eye some light. Eyes are pretty reflective, and also, honestly, it's a leftover habit from my anime days. I sometimes add a little bit of the super bright color of white around the iris detail too, just to make it pop more, but that's about it. Usually this entire process of drawing an eye only takes 2 to 5 minutes, and it's really simple and fast. Now I'll go through drawing the eye on an actual dragon. I feel like eye tutorials are nice and all when you see people drawing gorgeous disembodied eyes, but frankly it comes together more when you see it on an actual subject. So here we are with a dragon head shape that I already sketched out, and I plan out where I'm going to put the eye on the face by using the other features of the face to help me. So I like doing it a certain ways away from the horns, and usually I line up the eye with the circle that I used as a guide for the head. Before I actually settle on one eye shape, I decided to play around with different shapes so you can see how the shape of an eye really determines how a character is sort of portrayed. Like if you do this angular fancy girl eye with like an eyelash almost, they look very almost sleeker. And then you can also do like a super angry, like anime cartoonish eye that will also have a completely, like that makes just like the dragon have a completely different expression now, and they look pissed. Even though I haven't drawn the mouth or any other features. Or you can do sort of a wide-eyed, cute-looking, almost chibi eye, and that makes the character look more innocent and childlike. In the end, for this part of the tutorial, I'm just doing a simple variation of that lemon shape I showed you before, which is kind of almost like a triangle. So if the lemon shape is too annoying or difficult for you to draw, you can also just sort of draw a triangle and then curve the sides a bit, and that works out really nicely as well. I'm just gonna add the top of the eyelid and the brow so I know kind of what the character's feeling or what I'm working with, and then the next parts are super fast. I figure out where the pupil's gonna be, quickly shade in that white part, use the medium color to shade in the medium part of the iris, then I color in the top half of that semicircle of the iris. Then I'm gonna draw in the pupil down near the bottom because I'm gonna have the character be kind of like looking behind almost, or looking down into the side. Here I defined the pupil more with a darker color since I didn't really draw line art for the pupil like I did in my previous example. And then I can go in and put in details using a lighter color, like a neon blue almost. So as you can see, this is all like super fast, and it's like on an actual drawing where the eye is very small, you really don't need that much detail. You just need like a few lines to show approximately where the colors are, because when it's zoomed out, people aren't going to be able to see all those details. So then I can just add a couple light splotches and it's done. And that took like 3 minutes to draw. So you can play around with the expression lines around the eye to give characters a more obvious or different expression, but other than that, yep, that's how I draw my eyes. It's super fast. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and hopefully I'll be able to come out with more tutorials soon, like a full body tutorial and shading and lighting tutorial I know a lot of you guys have been wanting to see. Thanks for joining, and see you in the next video.